It's not ours. Not like ours that we use.
Okay, I'll call this work session of the Greenville City Council to order. Let the record reflect it's 4:30, and we have one item other than an executive session for Garfield Public Private LLC to make a presentation on a study for a hotel conference center. And we certainly appreciate you guys coming. As I said, it looks like you brought the A team, or you said the A team, B team, right? But we're interested we'd like to brief us a little bit. We may have some questions, and we appreciate you being here today. Thank you for coming over.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
We're going to jump into it. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Sorry.
I get a clicker too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I keep forgetting that.
Well, why don't you introduce your entire team there?
Yeah. So I'm Steve Galbraith. I'm the Chief Development Officer and a partner at Garfield Public Private. I brought, round of applause, I brought Ray Garfield, our chairman and founder, Mark Bullard from our development group, and Walter Pasiski from, he manages our asset management group. So, yeah, we brought the crew with us today to have a conversation with you guys. It's an exciting conversation. I know it's kind of a scary conversation to have, but and these things take time. So there's no rush, and I think we just we want to help shepherd you through the process, and we'll figure out how it works, and we'll show you how we've done it in a number of other cities. So I'm just going to jump into it. Going to try to go through this fairly quickly for you. That was quick, and that's it. You'll get to know us a bit, but we've done a lot of these. We've done over 30 million square feet of development, $11 billion financed, about $3 billion in public-private developments like this. And we've been very busy in Texas over the last 10 years. So, and I've been with Garfield just about 10 years now. Maybe I'm hitting on, off. Okay. Oh, here we go. Projects all over the country, but you can see down at the bottom in those lighter colors, those are 3 hotels that just opened in 2023 in Texas. We asset manage all of those. You guys, I think Summer knows Robert Hanna from the city manager in Abilene. He's a great person to just chat with about how the process went with them. And we have 2 projects going on right now that are kind of noted on here. One in Lubbock, our 3rd project with the city of Lubbock and Lubbock folks, the Lubbock County Expo Center. And we're working right now with the capital of Missouri, Jefferson City, on helping them get something almost just like what you're talking about here. Maybe a little bit more meeting space there, but it's the capital, and they've got a really busy meeting space need in that city. But again, projects all over. Other ones that you might know of in Lubbock, the Overton, that was done in conjunction with the city of Lubbock and Texas Tech University, and there's actually some student their RIM program there, restaurant and hotel management program, has some lab use in there. The professor has an office. We have locker rooms for the students, etc. So some interesting stuff. Again, we've done over 20 hotels, 6,600 rooms. So we've done this before, and we'll just kind of keep moving on. But it's really about crafting a vision and making a place that's of Greenville, right? So it's a destination. It's about economic development, and it's about making it a reality, because that's the hard part of these things. Top left is the Westin in Irving. If we decide to do this together, I'd suggest we do a couple things. One, we take a large group, whatever we're allowed to do, and take them to Irving, first see that, and then spring off to Abilene and spend an afternoon in Abilene and see that project and have a conversation with a number of their folks. One of their city council basically sat in on almost all of our meetings as just a tool for us to have a direct line with council, so he could kind of keep them up to date. On the top right is the Sheraton. That's over a 500 key Sheraton, and it's the headquarters hotel for the San Juan Convention Center in San Juan. Ray was my client back in those days. I was an architect. I'm a recovering architect now, and so we work together. But bottom left is the Overton in Lubbock. Bottom right is the Overland Park, Kansas Sheraton in Kansas. Top left again is a DoubleTree Hotel in Bayland, Michigan. Top right is the new DoubleTree by Hilton in Abilene. Great project and lots of fun. And bottom left is the Hyatt Regency in Baytown, and bottom right is the Hyatt Regency in Conroe. One of the things that we think is really important is that these pieces have a direct connection. They're one piece. You don't want to have a conference center over here and across the parking lot you have a hotel. We know it gets hot here. We know it rains. We know it gets cold. People want to be able to come down from their room into a lobby and go to meeting space, and so we think that's an important piece and really something that we do in almost every hotel. We have quite a bit of meeting space attached to the hotel. This is in Irving, looking at pre-function, looking across the street at the 250,000 square foot convention center that they built. Sat there for 8 years by itself, 11 maybe, 8.
8 before the hotel.
Yeah, so eight years that was there. Irving took 15 years and 5 developers before they got to us. It's a process, but you know, Moore Gast, who is with their CVB, it would be a great resource for you guys to chat with about how the city of Irving got that done. So I think that would be somebody if you talk to. Here's the restaurant and bar in that Irving hotel, the Westin, 3 meal restaurant. The gym. Again, all of these are everything that we have. We're showing you here are full service hotels, lots of meeting space, restaurant, bar, etc. Pool deck. Pools are important, but again, we really like these pools because we think that they become a great venue for cocktail receptions and a sellable event, an event that you can have a board that would meet up there for cocktails or hors d'oeuvres. Or a breakout session could be outside. So we have multiple outdoor spaces there and always try to find spaces throughout the hotel that can really work for a small group or a larger group or really break it up. I'm going to just go through really quick. You can't read this, and I'm sorry. It's a lot smaller than I thought it would be. But basically, the gist of this, and if you've seen the proposal, what I'm trying to get across here is that a number of these tasks that we're talking about overlap. Okay, so and this is what Summer, what we talked about when we were on the phone. This process could be as short as 6 months. It could be maybe a year. Sometimes it's 7-8 months. So this is showing a 7-month process, and it really just so you can see kind of graphically at the top. Initially is engaging a market study firm, having the actual market study produced. That's something that goes on for a couple months. Then taking that market study and turning it into a program, making sure we know what the elements that are going to be needed here, how much meeting space, how many guest rooms, how much parking, et cetera, et cetera. Then we'll kind of move on down. Then there's the design work. We spend a few months actually designing it on the site, a site that we've selected in those first couple of phases. And then taking that design, then we price that. We sit down with a contractor and we make sure we understand how much that thing is going to cost and what's the schedule to build that. And then we sit down with you guys, your attorneys, your bond counsel, your FA, your financial advisor, and discuss financing options. What tools does the city have available now, and what other tools can we help you figure out how we use those? And it's a list, it's a long list. Some cities can use these, some cities can use these, and it's just a way for us to do that. But we do that with an underwriter and all the financial folks in the room, and then really just sitting down, figuring out what the gap is, because these projects always have a gap. There's a gap. If they didn't have a gap, there'd be 4 hotels here that do exactly this, because a developer would have come and built it. So, but that's really what that is. It's just graphically trying to show that there's this progression as we move through these tasks that are in the proposal that you've seen, and we end up with a final report that says this is what it costs, this is what the budget is, this is how long it is, and it gives the city an opportunity to then make a decision. Do we want to move forward, or do we not want to move forward? And sometimes it's the right time. Sometimes it's like, let's pump the brakes on this and let's come back to this in a bit. So, real quick, we'll just touch on the delivery process real quick. Again, you see, we conduct a market study. They're going to interview folks. They're going to develop the scope and the program. They're going to talk about the design. We're going to produce development budgets and schedules. We're going to work with you to talk about what we think is the appropriate operator. Is it brand managed? Is it third party managed? Is this a full service hotel? Is this maybe a more of a limited service piece? If it's a full service, is it a Marriott? Is it a Hilton? Is it a Hyatt? Talking about that, and that's also identifying the operator, and then really looking at the operational and ownership plan. Typically, it's not just the city owns it, and that's the way it goes. We'll go into deep. At some point, we'll really start to sit down and talk about how we help you craft a 501c3 that could hold the hotel portion while those bonds are being sold. But we'll get into that, I think, at another time. We'll go really deep on the financing. One thing that we like to look at too is the opportunities for fundraising. Many of these cities have been able to find a donor to give some grants. So I know sometimes that seems like that's something hard to do, but Abilene was able to bring up about $19 million in grants from groups there in Abilene. So there's always an option, always a way to look for that. This is actually the presidential suite in the Westin in Irving. And we really, we do it kind of soup to nuts. We oversee the design and development. We're very involved in the scheduling and managing the construction process, down to commissioning and tuning, opening, pre-opening, staffing, and then Walter stays involved throughout the operations of the hotel. He'd be on site probably quarterly, on the phone for the first year or so with the GM and the sales team and their financial folks, probably monthly. And we're the conduit that kind of explains, you're not in the hotel business. You don't need to be managing a hotel. You don't need to be managing a conference center. That's something that we help figure that piece out for you. And then really, Walter will be the one that's talking to you down the road as it's open. And that's what the piece that we're talking about right there from an asset management standpoint. Really, we're involved in working with the brand or the asset or the management group as they hire the general manager, as they hire the director of operations, as they hire the chef, all those kind of things. We're involved to help those things. So again, you see the kind of the laundry list of things that we'll be doing during asset management. But again, we can talk more about asset management down the road, because that's a kind of once we're open. And I'm prepared. If you guys have questions, I know some have shared some questions with us before. Happy to take questions on the proposal or on any of that stuff. So,
I have some questions too. In reading your contract, I think you've identified 5 tasks that you're going to do for us. And it seems to me, I don't understand exactly the billing. It seems, do we get to, like, as we go, these are steps that we go, so task 1 is supposedly is the market study. Suppose a market study is negative. The only thing we've seen is something pre-COVID so far, and it's been very positive. We expect this will be positive, but just assume it's negative. Then at that point, would you present those findings to us, and the council would have the opportunity to say, looks like it's a bad time to proceed with this?
absolutely. We're I think that we show that's about 3 months, right? So about a month into that, we're going to start getting initial numbers. And I think maybe 45 days, maybe about halfway into that, we're going to kind of get a feel for that. And I think there'll be a small working group, right, that I think we can talk with, and we'll have that conversation. At that point, if it's looking good, we'd then suggest, hey, while they're wrapping up this, we already know now they said it was going to be 175 keys and 15,000 square feet of meeting space. We would suggest let's move into the early conceptual piece of it, which is task 2. It's kind of the overlapping piece. We can have those conversations. But the city, as you read that, you can pause and say, we don't like the results of that study. Let's take a pause for a bit.
Can we pause until you go to the next task? Because as I read the termination in that example you gave, I think you'd be into the next task. We haven't given you 10 days notice, so now we're liable for paying for task 2
if we don't want to go into, if you don't want to go into task 2, we can pause. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We'll work. I mean, and look,
Well, if
that's
the council only meets, certainly we need to appoint a subcommittee to work with this, but the council only meets twice monthly.
okay. Yep.
So that may create timing issues, and I'm just trying to.
We wouldn't automatically move into any task. I think that's where you're going. We're not gonna, just because this task ends, that doesn't mean we're just going without you telling us. We need the thumbs up from you before we move forward.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we're not going to play some game that, well, you called me 11 days after you had to call me in 10 days. That's not how we work. So.
Yeah. Well, I hope I didn't imply that.
No, of course.
And then also, I noticed some of these, you have additional services which you've factored in, some of the ones you've identified, which are legal.
Yep.
And miscellaneous reimbursement expenses, that sort of thing, which are understandable. But you might select, for example, a lot that doesn't require any geotechnical, right?
Yeah, sure.
That's the point
Sure.
of that.
Yep.
Or civil engineering.
Yeah, I mean, so we might be in an adjacent area where there's work going on where it would be reasonable for us at this early stage to say we know that on that site they're hitting bearing strata at 30 feet or whatnot, and we would assume that in the budgets for now. They're going to be very early budgets, right?
Sure.
But if we're in some really rocky, terrainy area, we might say we ought to probably invest a little bit of money in geotechnical before we move much farther forward. But we're assuming if it's a site that has development that's going on around it, there's going to be some information, and we're dealing with this on another site right now. There's likely going to be some information that at this early stage we can make some assumptions that we assume this for underground utilities and underground piles and things like that.
Who will they target in the survey? Some of the ones have been just the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, I think we'll talk with your chamber folks. We'll talk with anybody who's kind of acting in that kind of any kind of CVB role to talk about lost business that you didn't get because you didn't have the ability to have the meeting space, and really talk to some of those associations and figure out what would it take for them to start having meetings here. How do you get Greenville into the rotation, right? Because that's the point of building something like this. It's going to be a great place to have weddings. It's going to be a great place for clubs and things to meet. But the real point of building this for your city is to bring in high impact business. People that weren't going to come here before, that are going to now spend 2 and 3 days for an association and spend money everywhere. They're not going to spend money just at this hotel. Maybe they have their gala in the boardroom or in the ballroom one night, but they'll go out and dine at other restaurants one of the other evenings, or maybe they forgot a jacket and they have to go buy a jacket. So these folks come and spend money in the community.
Okay, well, I suppose you may not know, I think we discussed in the conference call, we have extraordinary growth around us also.
Yeah.
Maybe as many as 10,000 or maybe as many as 15,000 lots that aren't even in our city limit, that are within 5 miles of possibly locations for this. So will that group be included in any of this survey? Will they,
Look, I
or
think
will that influence the results, I guess I'm saying?
I think it should. If you think it's an appropriate piece for us to look at, I think we'll task the market study folks in looking at that as well. I mean, I don't think it's going to cost a lot more for them to look at that. We haven't selected a site.
Well,
I know.
I don't know how to tell you who to target, but we do have extraordinary growth going around us that will impact us.
Yeah, no, I think.
Hunt County is, I think we may have told you, is the 5th fastest growing county in the state. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take.
Good.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, so I thank you for being here. Are there any other questions?
I just wanted to ask, but it kind of is in line with what you asked. I think one of the last studies that we had conducted, they went out and talked to all the big industry, Innovation First International, and others like that. Different people. You'd probably be doing the same.
Sure. I think we also want to talk more. There's a lot of association business that we're hoping, not just, it's great for business to bring in business people, right? That's transient, but we want to bring in groups. I think you want to bring in groups. You bring in 300-400 people for 2-3 nights. That makes a change. All of a sudden, you can see a change. Wow, there's a big group in. And when you have a larger group, if you have a 10,000 square foot ballroom with maybe 600, 700 people in it, they can't all stay at this hotel. They're gonna stay everywhere, and so it's an opportunity for the hotel industry in the town to grow with it. This is high impact, and it's business that it was not going to be here before. Okay, induced business. It's coming in because of this group, and so it's going to be new customers. It's not just the same folks that maybe do business here quite a bit, changing from one hotel they used to stay at to this hotel now. It's going to be induced business. It's new business. I think everybody needs to understand that. Yeah.
I have just one other. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I have one other question, I guess. The prior survey, or we have surveys here, which I think just spoke to the number of events that we might be able to host. And I think your completion of task one includes the number of events, the amount of floor space for a conference center, whether or not you can support a full-service hotel, how many keys in that hotel. I mean, about that kind of recommendation, which goes beyond any survey I think we've ever had. So, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, task one is really that market study. This entire package is there's a lot here. Okay, it's not just going to be the market study. It's then full concept designs, pricing.
No, I understand that.
Current pricing.
I'm focused on task one.
On task one.
I think my point is we're getting more than just, there's going to be 800 events in this hotel in a year, that more like it will support a 125 room hotel, full service restaurant, et cetera, at about this much floor space in the conference center, something like that.
Yeah, more than just the number of events. We want to know how many people are at each event, and how many days is that event.
Okay.
So I think we'll be able to determine, this study will come up with a room night, how many room nights are going to stay at the hotel per year.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
More information.
And a
like
full
that we've
occupancy.
Received previously.
Yeah, a full occupancy and rates.
Okay.
Ray, did you want to add something?
I think so, yeah. Evening, everybody. I'm Ray Garfield. This becomes a generational sort of development for the community. As we've done for so many cities around Texas and around the country, Lubbock didn't have a full-service hotel until we did a public-private partnership with them and built the Overton across from Texas Tech University. And that was really a partnership not just with the city, but with Texas Tech. And it is still the only full-service hotel, but they're trying to get a new one done at their Civic Center. But that hotel, the DoubleTree in Abilene that we just opened a year and a half ago, right across the street from their 1970s Civic Center, is the headquarters hotel for now what has been relabeled their convention center. And by the way, I want to point out that every hotel that we've done in Texas has been approved by the state legislature as a qualified hotel project. So the state will reimburse all of the state's receipts of hotel occupancy tax and sales tax generated from this new development for a full 10-year period. All the state's receipts for hotel occupancy tax and sales tax for 10 years can be reimbursed to the city. And that's one of the tools that communities have to be able to afford a public-private partnership. So why a public-private partnership? Because if this is a full-service hotel, and every hotel that we've done up to this point has been full-service, but I will add that there are a few communities, smaller communities, that have started with a select service brand, maybe a Marriott Courtyard with extra meeting space and extra food and beverage, or a Hilton Garden Inn as opposed to a Hilton, or even a DoubleTree by Hilton like we did for Abilene. But it serves a huge public purpose in supporting your Convention and Visitors Bureau, in bringing in these, as Steve said, these high impact groups that come to the city and spend 2 days or 3 days and sometimes even 4 days and spend the $200 a night or whatever that's going to be in terms of average rate, and also eat at restaurants and shop in retail stores in the community, and produces a lot of that revenue. And that's why we've been able to do so many of these hotels financed with tax-exempt bonds. So Irving's Westin Hotel, the hotel that sits on that picture in the monitor there right across from the Irving Convention Center, is owned by a 501c3 corporation, a not-for-profit corporation. And tax-exempt bonds were sold to finance the design and construction of that Westin Hotel. And what that means is that we were able to save several $1 million in constructing the facility because we were able to avoid paying the state sales tax on all the material that went into building that hotel. It also does not pay ad valorem taxes because it's owned by a not-for-profit, and that savings goes right into the net income of that hotel to amortize the bonds that are the mortgage on that property. We're able to not have to use a bank as a construction and mini-perm lender. And banks are typically charging 8, 9, 10% for their money. And we can avoid private equity when we do these things tax exempt. And equity returns are high. They're 25, 30% internal rate of return. So an investor puts in his money when he starts to design the property, and it stays in through the 18 or 24 months of construction. And then it stays in for another 2 or 3 years while the hotel stabilizes until the 3rd or 4th or 5th year of operations, when the investor hopes to sell the property and get his return. And that return wants to be on average 25 or 30% per year on the original money he put in. And so when you look at those interest rate yields and return yields, a hotel of this nature could easily have a double-digit burden on it financially every year. It would have to amortize its mortgage and pay back returns to private owners. So we really strive to work with your financial advisors, your bond counsel, an underwriter, to see if it makes sense to do a tax-exempt delivery of this particular facility. And one other thing, if this is a Marriott or a Hilton or a Hyatt full-service hotel, it costs around twice as much minimum to design and build a full-service hotel than it costs to build a Hampton Inn, a Fairfield Inn, a Home 2 Suites, a select service or limited service property. And why is that? It's number one, because full service hotel is going to have 75 or 100 square feet per room in meeting space. So if you build a 200-room hotel, you're going to build 20,000 square feet of meeting space with it. No limited service hotel has meeting space. They've got 1 or 2 room modules that may be meeting space there. Full service restaurant, banquet kitchen, because you're going to have banquets in that ballroom that you design and so forth. So what you have to pay to build a select service hotel versus a full service hotel is a lot more money. And in the same community where you have so many select service, limited service hotels operating that were being able to be built for $150,000 or $200,000 a room, we're building a hotel that may be $500,000 a room. And as a consequence, we'll get more average rate, but we won't get twice the average rate of what your local market is. And that's where the collaboration between the private sector and the public sector, comes into play. And it may be when that market study comes in that there's a discussion about, well, maybe you do build a Courtyard on steroids or a Hilton Garden Inn on steroids versus a Marriott Autograph or a full-service Marriott Hotel or a full-service Hilton, or to the DoubleTree that we built for Abilene. Hilton manages that hotel in Abilene. It is branded and managed as a Hilton, and so it's really important to know that how these hotel organizations think as well. When they looked at either branding that hotel a Hilton or a DoubleTree, they have these requirements internally at Hilton to say the average rate and occupancies within a market need to be at a certain level if we're going to spend the money to build a real full-service Hilton. They can be somewhat lower if we do the entry-level full-service hotel for Hilton, which is a DoubleTree. So those are a lot of the planning and the discussions and thoughts that we'll bring to the table here. Okay. Questions for me? Okay.
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
So we're generally familiar with the statute that you were talking about for these hotels to be added to the bracketed list. What order do you go in? Do you try to get that added to our community added to the bracketed list first and then go through marketing, or do you figure out all the plans for that and then lobby to be added at the next session?
Well, of course, our legislature only meets every 2 years, so it's really an important question. Okay, I would say that you'd want your representatives to maybe have a conversation with the Attorney General's office and just make sure that if you're approved in a legislative session for these refunds, that approval can last a certain number of years. So, I mean, I think when we went to Abilene, they had originally been approved in 2017. And we were engaged by them around 2018. And of course, COVID hit. We were going to break ground, in 2019, 2020, but COVID reared its ugly head, and we decided to take a pause. Then when we started construction at the end of 21, because the vaccines came in 21, we were, their bond counsel contacted the state and made sure that there were extensions for those original approvals so that it was still a qualified project, and they could bill the state every quarter, every year to rebate all those funds that are collected. I guess I'd say, Daniel, that I'd recommend as early as you can go get the approvals. If you're really on this track, you should do that. I don't know whether it's too late to get it into this particular legislative session or
is.
not.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
too late this session. But,
We're probably 36 months plus. If you said, go now, let's do this hotel, we're probably at least 36 months. So I think we do have some time. These things do take time, and it likely takes a little bit more time than that.
That's right.
and all of y'all, those other hotels in Texas, the three that were recently done, those all went, they were part of the bracketed statute.
Every one of them bills the state for the reimbursements. They're all approved, qualified projects. And both Conroe and Baytown went in. We helped with their lobbyists at the time, get those approvals while we were engaged during this pre-development stage, because they knew they were going to go forward, and they absolutely wanted those approvals. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you for being here tonight. Safe travels back to. Thank you very much. I think there are no more questions. Do you have any, Summer?
Did you want us to be here for the city council meeting this evening or not?
I think you briefed us. I think there shouldn't be any, unless members have any other questions. I don't know that there's a reason for you to be here. We'll certainly notify you of the result. I'm hopeful that.
If you would like us, we don't mind staying and coming back and just being there, but if you guys have all your questions answered and everything else.
What's the pleasure of the council? Fine with me if you, I don't
see any reason.
I don't think we'll need you. Thank you.
All right.
We appreciate it very much.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Okay. I have one question. Why is it too late to file for that? Is it because it's?
There were two deadlines that have already passed. One was 2.5 weeks ago. One was
file.
the general bill
Okay.
filing
Okay.
deadline. We haven't hit the local bill filing deadline. I'm not sure when that is, but that's one of the things we're going to talk about in executive. But I don't know for this bill, since it affects the tax code, I believe is where that section is. I don't know. My understanding is the deadline to change those and add different things has passed. That doesn't mean, we can't get it done this session anyway. So it'll be, right at 18 months before that would come up again.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will go into executive session. We'll be back out at 6 o'clock for the regular meeting. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Okay, it's a little after 6 o'clock. I'll call this Greenville City Council, regular session of the Greenville City Council meeting to order. Let the record reflect it's 6:02. And I'd like to ask Dr. Tommy Mann with Highland Terrace to come up and offer the invitation. Thank you for being here tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to take a few minutes here to conduct city business. I pray for this council. I pray that you give them wisdom, and I pray that they always remember that even when there's frustrations and difficult decisions to be made, that it's an honor to be able to represent this city. So I pray that everything that's done tonight would be conducted in a right spirit. Again, I pray for wisdom, for your blessings on the city of Greenville, and we thank you for your son Jesus, who shed his blood to make salvation and forgiveness possible. So we pray for a great night, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. There are no presentations tonight, but I want to make a couple of announcements. Greenville Fire and Rescue, in combination with Family First Home Health and Hospice, will be hosting a senior living event on Friday the 28th. That's this Friday from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock at the Fletcher Warren. And they expect to have over 30 vendors there. And so if you're a senior or a caregiver or whatever, this is something for you. And I wanted to mention that. I think it was briefly in the paper, but I thought it important to bring it to the city's attention. In addition, I wanted to clarify something from the Herald Banner today. We unfortunately, the Ink Slingers convention, I guess you might say, was canceled for the reason. I'd like for Daniel to briefly explain the reason for that, if you would, please, because it wasn't clear from the newspaper.
Okay, yeah. Basically, the city was putting together a weekend convention for people to come and do tattoo-related items, either giving them to people in the building or selling things related to that, like the supplies in one of the other rooms. There was some problems getting the permissions needed from the Department of State Health Services, which we call DISHES. I called, once I learned about it, I called the people at the licensing department that handle these temporary permits and talked with 3 of them, and basically was told that because that building is located in zoning, in this case, single family 2 zoning, that does not allow for tattoo parlors, that they would not ever give Greenville the temporary permit that's necessary for tattoo related things like that to be legally done. And there is no way around it other than changing the zoning. And changing the zoning of the Civic Center would create its own issues. But the only way that could happen would be if that zoning was changed to industrial or light industrial. And that on its own could potentially cause a suit from the neighbors who live next door, a spot zoning lawsuit, which is effectively changes the value of adjacent property. If you take something that's in the middle of single family 2 in every direction, turn it into industrial or light industrial, it causes a diminution in property value of the adjacent properties. Even if just $1, it's still the basis for a lawsuit. So the city was put in a situation where it had zero choice but to cancel it for this year. If it's ever going to happen in future years, it's going to have to come after going through the zoning process. The city can't just exempt itself from zoning. And so to the extent that there was some zoning that allowed it, that's by itself a 4 to 6 month process. And so if that's something the council's interested in doing, we can talk about it, but there is no possible way that that would be a legal thing for the city to do this year.
Yeah, and I think in the article in the paper, they said they were planning on relocating this to in Greenville at another location in 4 or 5 months. So thank you for that explanation. I'll call your attention to 2 items in the agenda. Citizens to be heard in public testimony. Citizens are to be heard on items that are scheduled either for public hearing or not otherwise on the agenda. And public hearings are for items that are on the agenda, starting tonight with item 8A. So if you'd like to address the council on any of these issues, please present a citizen's comment card to the city secretary. And I think it's 3 minutes on citizens to be heard in public testimony. Are there citizens? No citizens, okay. There are no public hearings tonight. There are no ordinances, so we'll start with item 8A, consideration action on a resolution authorizing a professional services pre-development agreement with Garfield Public Private LLC for services in connection with the planning, designing, financing, and construction of a hotel convention center and parking lot or parking to serve citizens, businesses, and visitors to the city of Greenville. Summer?
Thank you, Mayor. As you guys were briefed in work session by Garfield, they put forward you guys a proposal. These are just a few of the slides. If you'll go to the next one. This just gives the timeline of that pre-development scope of work, which would be from March to September. This would basically get us to the point where it would give us a study that would determine not only if it's a feasible project, but also, you know, the location of that project, what's best, what's the best brand, you know, what's the best size of the project, and so on and so forth. So it'd be a lot more intensive than the previous 2 studies that were done pre-COVID. So this would give you guys as council a little bit more information to be able to make a decision if this is a project that the city should move forward with or should not move forward with. In their proposal, there was a timeline. There's actually 5 different tasks. You can pause this at any time after any of those tasks, but do understand that if you get into like if you went from task 1 to task 2, we'd have to finalize and pay them all of task 2 if we were in the middle of that. So, you know, if we do stop that. Task 1 is going to be the market study and then the location and the brand and all of that information. So basically the feasibility study would be in task 1. If we don't go forward after that, then there's no more money that needs to be paid. We just have to give them 10 days notice to get out of this pre-development agreement, because we are entering into an agreement for an up to amount of $330,000, not to exceed, which from a budget standpoint, we obviously did not have this budgeted in the budget, but we would be able to handle this over 2 budget years. If council did decide after task 1 to go on and complete all 5 tasks, we would, because of the timing of it, we could span it over 2 budget years and do partially fund it in this budget, and then the remainder of it would be funded in the future budget.
And I believe the cost of task 1 was $65,000.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll just ask, is there any public testimony tonight? There being no public testimony, I'll ask the council, what is the pleasure of this item 8A?
Make a motion to approve.
I'd like to discuss this for a moment.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I have reservations about this project, and I understand that task 1 is basically just a study, and I do have interest in the study to see where it goes, but I would like to have the study completed, task 1, and the council have a meeting or decision in whole before we move on to task 2. And I would like to make that like a mandatory step.
Okay. I think I asked and clarified that in the meeting that we would do that. I don't know that, do you think that requires amendment to the contract?
I don't know.
It doesn't require an amendment to the contract if you make a motion to that effect.
Okay.
If you vote to accept the contract subject to that limitation or revision.
Well, if you make that motion, I'd like you to make the motion relative to every task.
And I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Subcommittee's going to be formed.
Right.
I agree.
So, do you want to withdraw your motion, Terry?
I will. I'll withdraw the motion.
Well, do you want to make the motion?
Okay. Hopefully I get this right. I'd like to make a motion to move forward with the study in task 1, and that the council be required to come back together prior to the next step of tasks to make a decision to move forward or not. Is that acceptable?
Yes, that is.
That apply to every task.
And that would apply to every task.
It would apply to every bracketed tag because the next 4 start at the same time. So you're not saying have a separate council meeting for every single task.
No, there was
You're
a
talking about every
different
stage.
There was a different document.
There are 5
The-
tasks identified.
Yeah. Yes, that
I've made
yeah, Exhibit B. It was
That's
Exhibit B of their scope of services.
Yeah.
It was emailed to us, I
It's in the
believe,
packet.
and so the task 1 will be the preliminary project operating pro forma. Then task 2 would be the conceptual architectural design. Task 3 would be the preliminary project pricing and scheduling. Task 4 was the preliminary capital plan of finance. Task 5 was the final strategic business plan. And that was the final task.
So you would want approval by council before the ability to move forward with any.
Correct.
Well, not necessarily with any billable task, but for each of those 5 big buckets of tasks.
Yes.
Is that okay?
As what's defined out in Exhibit B.
Yeah. So just to repeat your motion, you have effectively moved to accept the contract as is with a single amendment that after the phase 1 is done, and that be done separately, that they come back to council or there's another council decision and vote to move forward with the next 4 buckets of tasks, and that each of those requires a separate council action before that new set of tasks begins.
Correct.
It's implied, or it was to me, that all those tasks were sequential. They may not be. I don't know that that's.
There's some overlap.
Yeah, there is some. Anyway.
Well, with his motion, that's fine. We can come back after the first one and then work out a better way to handle that so that it makes sense financially and for the right power money balance.
Okay. So that was so effectively, Philip is amending Terry's motion?
No, Terry's motion was withdrawn, so this would be Philip's motion.
So you're gonna.
Yes.
You've made a motion.
I've
with
made
that
my motion.
Proposed amendment.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second? Motion second, please vote. And it passes 6-0. Item 8B, consideration and action on a resolution authorizing the purchase of 2 floating dock systems in the amount of $71,000 for the City of Greenville Reservoir. Number 4.
Hello, City Council, Mayor. I'm here to talk to you today about fishing instead of water stuff. So I'm asking if we can go into consideration action for authorizing the City of Greenville to purchase the 2 floating docks from Easy Dock. Easy Dock is a company that we found on Buy Board. This is basically what they'll look like, except the 2 that I'm talking about will have kayak launches on them. Because right now at the reservoir, it has recreational fishing, but they don't have access. If you don't have access to a boat with an electric motor, you kind of have to fish around the banks. So some of those areas, they're rocky and kind of steep. And well, these 2 floating dock systems will give the, people a safe place to fish and be, and actually launch their kayaks in a safe place too, because the boat ramp down there is not in the best shape also. So that's why I'm here tonight, is to ask you if we can go ahead and purchase these 2 floating docks for $71,944. We actually have a budget set aside to get this project going for the for number 4 and turn it to a recreational kind of park place for the citizens. So that's why I'm here tonight.
Any questions?
Just to be clear too, also, are these handicap accessible?
They will be. And there will be other things that come with it at the next city council meeting to help people in wheelchairs access these docks a lot easier too. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Is Parks and Rec in charge of maintenance?
I'm sorry, Fig.
Parks and Rec.
They do go by the reservoirs and take the trash, pick the trash up, but we also have that inmate program that goes and they mow and they pick up trash and all that too. The water plant will be responsible for, making sure there's no vandalism or anything like that going on, and keep an eye on them, and hopefully they last and make some citizens happy.
Robert, what is the lifespan?
I don't know. I can find out and let you know that. But the material they're made of, I mean, they'll last probably 15, 20 plus years, as long as people take care of them. And that's one thing we got to make sure is people take care of them. So, and you can see in the picture, the top of the screen on the bottom left, that's Reservoir 6, and then Reservoir 4 is right below it. We were talking about putting one in Reservoir 4 and then across from that in Reservoir 6, so there'll be 2 on each side.
Any other questions? If not, what is the pleasure of the council regarding this item?
I'm making a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Please vote. And it passes 6-0. I've been advised that item 8C is postponed. Like to ask the city secretary to read the consent calendar, please.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Robert.
City Council meeting minutes from March 11th. Resolution approving a temporary street closure for the Hunt County Festival of the Arts on May 10th. Consideration and action on a resolution authorizing the purchase of 2 transformers for Lake Tawakoni Pump Station.
Okay, are there any questions regarding these items? If not, what is your pleasure regarding the consent calendar?
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Please vote. And it passes 6-0. City staff, city council reports, the monthly status report, Summer.
Thank you, Mayor. This will be for the month of February. Utility cuts were up from January from 15 to 20. In-house repairs for potholes for February were 77. Street sweeping miles were at 121. And just a reminder that downtown is swept on a weekly basis. There is some construction going on right now, but it is still swept on a weekly basis. Not a lot of mowing for the month of February. That's going to start changing, obviously, with the better weather. There was no intersections that were cleared in the month of February. That's why you see a 0 there for February. Same in February of 24. Signs replaced is 126. That is correct. I double checked on that. We were able to hire a traffic technician to help our traffic foreman, and so that traffic technician has been very busy replacing signs. So as soon as they got to work, they started replacing some signs. So I think that's why you see that giant increase. Building permits issued for the month of February at 18, down a little bit from 22 in January. COs issued were 25. And traffic citations were up 259 for the month of February. Not much difference on the raw water line. That project's still going well. They're moving along like they should. No major issues that we've encountered, and still moving forward with that. The work has started down at the Tawakoni pump station, so that's going well, and so everything's moving along. And then planned street projects, those are the list of streets. I was able to meet with Chris Harris and Steve and GP and myself, so we have now gotten together a listing of streets as well as the budget that we have in place. And so my next step is to meet with the Transportation Committee, run that by them, see what they want to do, if they want to go with the recommendations that we've made, or if they'd like to change anything up, and then we will bring that before council to be able to start those street projects here in the future. So that's the next step for that, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Could we ask the city secretary to schedule that meeting?
I will, yes.
Transportation Committee, please?
Yes, yes, I will.
Between now and the next meeting?
Yes.
So we can make a recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's a slide for the number of potholes filled. Can we have, like, in that same bar graph, can we have any way of, or is there any way to track how many potholes are reported? So we can kind of see a number of reported to filled to see if there's a good ratio of action being taken?
Yeah, I mean, you know, any kind of reporting. I mean, because we get phone calls, we get reported concerns. I report them by email.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a official way to report.
I mean, we have work orders on what's produced based on what we feel.
Yeah, I would just like the citizens to be able to see if I mean, obviously I can tell by driving, but you know, a way to be able to track that we're actually making an attempt to stay on top of the potholes that are.
I get quite a few numbers because I'm bus driving, and a lot of guys,
and
lot of people work for the bus, and they always ask me about potholes and stuff like that.
Which is fine.
And I usually call it in and say, you know, we got a pothole over here and a pothole over there.
So when they do that,
you know, I usually get quite a few every month.
And I know it's hard to track because.
So you want to track what work orders are coming in versus what we're getting to for that month? You know, because we're never caught up. I mean, once it rains, then those potholes, it increases again. So, so is that what you want to see? I'm just trying to figure out.
I mean, if we can start to try to come up with some way of tracking what's reported to what's getting worked on.
Okay.
Just so we can.
Okay, I'll get with Chris and see that reporting.
I don't know what the best answer is to that, so.
Okay.
It might take a while to figure out the best way to.
Okay, I'll see if I can get it. If I can't, the next meeting, hopefully by the next month.
Okay.
It might take me a month to get all that. So, or at least to them to start.
This doesn't answer your question, but we fixed over 1,000 potholes last year.
Yes.
I don't remember the number.
Yeah, it was more than, because we did that for your chamber presentation on how many were for the year.
I think 1,024.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, I was say we get quite a few of those. You'll have. Okay, I'll make sure Chris is aware. All right.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Okay. City council discussion of proposed agenda items. Anything council would like to propose for the future?
This is in relation to parks fees. I believe we extended the contract one time. I think that deadline has lapsed, but for the Wildcatter development and the disc golf course, I think we're past when that was supposed to be completed, and that's in lieu of the parks fees. So if that's not completed, we need to look at what we need to do.
Any other items? Okay, you have before you item 12, Board of Development minutes from the February 13th meeting. We've completed executive session. We will not be going back into executive session. Appreciate you coming tonight, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.